This is Monty with Bill Brothers, starting my digital inspection for a realtor. We're at a property in the Santee area, and what we're looking at on this front section here is a modified bitumen torch down material on a flat roof. And you can see this just happens over time with aging. Those corners and the edge begins to pull back a little bit as the material bakes and shrinks. And you can see this along the drip edge. So we can see a little bit of pullback right here. And we do have bleed out. We like to see at least a 1/4 to 1/2 inch of bleed out, so that is a good sign. And you can see where water tends to pool up right here. You can see all that granule buildup and all this water staining underneath the eaves. Now the eaves consist of, we have the fascia board, we have the rafter tails, and in this case we actually have plywood instead of starter boards on this roof. Wood looks to be freshly painted. And we do have drip edge on here. Drip edge is a good sign, allows for water to freely flow off anytime it rains. But on this roof, we do see water staining in the attic space, and then we also see some water staining over here on the fascia board. So it looks like water has been getting access to that wood. We do have O'Hagan vents. This is our preferred exhaust ventilation that we like to use. Allows that hot air to escape. So we have a couple here. But a couple things I noticed that tells me that this is 2 layers. Well, you can see around the flashings, right, that these are really covered up. So my guess is that there are 2 layers on this roof. And another sign that tells me that there are 2 layers, well, we have a lot of soft spots indicating that there is wood that has been left behind. You know, this is really, really soft near this solar tube. And we have a couple more soft spots, but this is flexing quite a bit. So that's something I noticed. Checking under the eaves here, you can see our water is collected. And then you can see this wood has actually been replaced in the past. So you can see that a new plywood and new rafter tail. But a couple areas of concern that I want to point out. So you can see on this corner, we never want to be able to lift this up around the drip edge. This should actually be secure with this. And you can see that they used a synthetic underlayment, so that's a good material. But this should be secure with the starter shingle, and it should actually be adhered on here. So I shouldn't be able to lift this up. Same thing on this flat torch down section. Looks like this was installed a little bit more recently than the front and the back section. And the reason we can tell that, well, this is really loose as well. So again, we shouldn't be able to lift this up at all. And you can see that this was kind of just stuck under there. So this part looks really messy. You can see that this is actually folded up and creased, and then you can see that this isn't really tucked under the counter flashing at all. It's actually sticking out. And then we also have no bleed out on the seams like we do on the front. So definitely an area of concern. We do have some exposed nail heads as well. Looks like we have one right here that was actually touched up with some mastic. And then we have another one right here. So we never want to see exposed nail heads. We do see proper seam stagger on here, at least 6 inches apart on each course. So that's a good sign. However, the installation on this flat section, you see a lot of overhang, and you can see a clear difference from proper and improper installation. So this back part was properly installed. This is professional, but you see this part, this is pretty bad. So we shouldn't be able to lift this up at all. Looks like it wasn't adhered properly, and it wasn't it's not flush, right? So anytime wind driven rain gets up and under here, well, it's going to go and spread across this roof. So this part was not done properly. Okay, moving on the back here, we do have 2 skylights. Looks like we have some Massot repair. All right. And then we do have some more soft spots in the back here. So as I walk, this wood is starting to flex quite a bit. So that tells me that there's a little bit of bad wood on this. And with an overlay, well, yeah, you're not replacing that wood that's originally underneath. So that's why you're gonna get a lot of soft spots. And then same thing with the penetrations. The penetrations need to be resealed for maintenance after some time, because those seals begin to crack, just like so on this heat vent. So that's an opportunity for water to get underneath anytime it rains. See the same thing over here. And then we see some Massot repair around these solar tubes. All right. Same thing over here. You can see they actually bent the shingle in order to get this into there. So what's my assessment? My professional opinion, there's a lot of irregularities on this roof. I believe, you know, there's some good stuff and then some bad stuff. But, you know, in my professional opinion, I would honestly recommend replacing this because of how many red flags I've seen on this roof, especially on this flat section. And the way that this was installed, right? You know, the area is going to be prone to leaks, right? Especially too, well, we have 2 exposed nail heads. The shingle portion was installed questionably. We have good materials on it, but I don't think it was properly installed. So my recommendation would be to start fresh, tear this down, both layers to the wood decking, and address that rotten wood, especially because we have so much flex over here in these areas. We also want to replace this torch down with TPO. TPO is a synthetic material. We use it on a lot of commercial buildings. It does a very good job at keeping water out long term, and it actually reflects the UV rays, keeping the house cooler. And as far as the age, I mean, I think this roof is only a couple years old. Looks fairly fresh. But yeah, that's would be my recommendation. And then at the very least, if we don't go with the full re-roof, we'll definitely need to go with a roof tune-up, but I wouldn't recommend that. Thank you.